Colonel James Harrison looked up from his tactical briefing notes as the new intelligence analyst entered the secure operations room at Fort Braxton. She was young, maybe 26, with auburn hair pulled back in regulation style and wearing a crisp dress uniform that fit perfectly. Too perfectly, Harrison thought. The kind of polished appearance that suggested someone who had never spent time in actual field conditions. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Lieutenant Rebecca Ashford, reporting for duty, sir, she said, delivering a textbook salute. Harrison barely looked up from his papers. Another desk assignment from personnel. Wonderful. He gestured vaguely toward the bank of computer terminals along the far wall. Intelligence Analysis Station is over there. Someone will show you the systems. The operations center was buzzing with activity as analysts processed incoming data from 3 active theaters. Maps covered every available wall space, marked with colored pins indicating troop movements, supply routes, and areas of strategic interest. Radio chatter provided constant background noise as field units reported status updates and requested operational guidance. Rebecca surveyed the room with careful attention, noting the workflow patterns, communication protocols, and which personnel seemed to handle the most sensitive materials. Her assessment was systematic and thorough, though she kept her observations subtle enough to avoid drawing attention. Staff Sergeant Michael Torres approached her workstation with a stack of routine intelligence reports. Welcome to the Snake Pit, Lieutenant. These are standard intercept analyses, radio communications, routine patrol reports, nothing classified above your clearance level. Rebecca accepted the files without comment. Standard procedure for new analysts was to start with low-priority materials, while supervisors evaluated their competence and reliability. She had expected this treatment and understood it was part of institutional protocol rather than personal dismissal. But Colonel Harrison's attitude was different. When he spoke to male analysts, his tone carried professional respect and detailed operational context. When he addressed Rebecca, his voice took on the patronizing edge reserved for personnel he considered temporary or decorative additions to serious military operations. Lieutenant Ashford, Harrison called from across the room, make sure those reports are processed by 1500 hours. We run a tight schedule here. Yes, sir, Rebecca replied, already opening the first file. The intercepted communications were routine battlefield chatter from opposing forces, mostly tactical coordination and supply requests. But Rebecca noticed patterns in the language structure that suggested something more complex beneath the surface content. Certain phrases appeared with unusual frequency, and the grammatical constructions seemed deliberately awkward in ways that indicated possible coded messaging. She began cross-referencing the linguistic anomalies against known encryption methods, working through the analysis with methodical precision. The patterns became clearer as she isolated recurring elements and compared them against historical intelligence databases. 3 hours later, Rebecca approached Colonel Harrison's desk with her completed analysis. He was reviewing deployment schedules with 2 senior staff officers, discussing logistics for an upcoming operation in mountainous terrain where communication security would be critical. Sir, I've completed the initial assessment of the intercepted communications. Harrison didn't look up from his maps. File your report with Sergeant Torres. We'll review it with the next batch. Colonel, I believe these communications contain embedded intelligence that requires immediate attention. Now Harrison did look up, his expression showing mild irritation at the interruption. Lieutenant, those are routine intercepts, standard battlefield chatter. Nothing that requires urgent analysis. Sir, the linguistic patterns suggest a sophisticated encoding system. The surface communications appear routine, but the underlying structure indicates coordination for a significant operation. Harrison exchanged glances with his staff officers. One of them, Major Patricia Walsh, leaned forward with obvious skepticism. Lieutenant, those intercepts have been reviewed by 3 different analysts over the past week. There's nothing there except basic tactical coordination. With respect, Major, I believe the previous analyses may have missed the multilingual encoding structure. The communications alternate between 3 languages in ways that create semantic layers beyond the apparent content. Colonel Harrison set down his pen and gave Rebecca his full attention for the first time since she had arrived. 3 languages? Arabic, Farsi, and Pashto, sir. The speakers switch between languages and patterns that correspond to number sequences when you map the transitions against grammatical structures. That's quite a theory, Lieutenant. Harrison's tone carried the condescending patience usually reserved for explaining obvious facts to new personnel. But our translators are fluent in all three languages. If there was coded content, they would have identified it. Rebecca remained at attention, maintaining professional composure despite the dismissive response. Sir, I respectfully request permission to present my complete analysis. Harrison glanced at his watch. The afternoon briefing with Regional Command was scheduled to begin in 20 minutes, and he had more pressing concerns than entertaining theoretical analysis from an untested analyst. Lieutenant, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we don't have time for academic exercises. These intercepts have been thoroughly reviewed by experienced personnel. Please focus on the standard intelligence processing procedures. Colonel, Rebecca said carefully, if I'm correct about the encoding structure, the communications indicate preparation for a coordinated assault on forward operating bases in Sector 7. The room went quiet. Sector 7 contained 3 American outposts that were considered secure due to their remote locations and defensive positioning. Any coordinated assault would require detailed intelligence about patrol schedules, supply routes, and communication protocols. Major Walsh looked at Rebecca with sharper attention. What specifically makes you think the communications reference Sector 7? The numerical sequences embedded in the language transitions correspond to grid coordinates when processed through a trilingual cipher matrix. The coordinates map directly to the 3 forward operating bases. Colonel Harrison studied Rebecca's face, trying to determine whether she was demonstrating genuine analytical capability or simply making educated guesses based on current operational concerns. Show me, he said finally. Rebecca moved to the large tactical display screen at the front of the operations center. She pulled up the intercepted communications and began highlighting specific phrases in different colors corresponding to the 3 languages being used. The pattern becomes visible when you track language transitions against content themes. Each switch from Arabic to Farsi corresponds to geographical references. Farsi to Pashto transitions indicate timing elements. Pashto back to Arabic provides tactical specifications. As she worked through the analysis, Colonel Harrison found himself paying closer attention to her methodology. The linguistic analysis was more sophisticated than anything he had seen from standard intelligence training. Rebecca was identifying patterns that required not just fluency in multiple languages, but understanding of how those languages could be systematically manipulated to create hidden meaning. When you map the embedded coordinates, Rebecca continued, they create a triangular pattern with vertices at the exact locations of Firebase Alpha, Outpost Bravo, and Station Charlie in Sector 7. Colonel Harrison moved closer to the display. The coordinates she had identified did indeed correspond to their forward operating bases, but that could be coincidental. Enemy forces in the region would be aware of American positions through routine surveillance and local intelligence gathering. Lieutenant, these coordinates could reference any number of strategic points in that sector. Yes, sir, but the timing elements suggest coordinated action planned for 0430 hours tomorrow morning. That corresponds to the shift change when defensive alertness is typically lowest at forward positions. Now, Harrison was paying serious attention. The timing reference was too specific to be coincidental, and 0430 was indeed when guard rotations occurred at forward operating bases. That information wasn't something enemy forces could gather through casual observation. How confident are you in this analysis? Rebecca met his eyes directly. Sir, if I'm wrong, we lose nothing by increasing security alerts at the 3 bases. If I'm correct, we prevent casualties and capture intelligence about enemy coordination capabilities. Quote. Colonel Harrison realized he was facing a decision that would reveal whether he trusted his initial assessment of Lieutenant Ashford as an inexperienced analyst who had gotten lucky with an interesting theory, or whether he was willing to consider that she possessed analytical capabilities that exceeded his expectations. Major Walsh, he said without taking his eyes off Rebecca, get me secure communication with Sector 7 Command. I want to speak with the base commanders immediately. Rebecca remained at attention while Colonel Harrison made the calls. If her analysis was wrong, she would likely be reassigned to routine intelligence processing for the remainder of her tour. If she was right, it would demonstrate capabilities that would require significant revision of how she was utilized by the intelligence unit. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. But as she watched Colonel Harrison's expression during his conversations with the base commanders, she realized the test wasn't just about her analytical accuracy. It was about whether institutional assumptions about appearance and capability could be overcome by demonstration of professional competence that exceeded normal expectations. The next 12 hours would determine whether Lieutenant Rebecca Ashford would be dismissed as an overeager analyst who had made a lucky guess, or recognized as someone whose capabilities required completely different evaluation criteria than standard military intelligence protocols. At 04:15 hours, the emergency alert sirens at Firebase Alpha, Outpost Bravo, and Station Charlie began their piercing wail across the pre-dawn darkness. Within minutes, defensive positions were fully manned, perimeter security was doubled, and communication channels were cleared for priority traffic. At 04:32, exactly 2 minutes after Rebecca's predicted timing, coordinated mortar attacks began simultaneously at all 3 locations. The enemy had indeed planned their assault for the shift change, expecting reduced alertness and delayed response times. Instead, they encountered fully prepared defensive positions with overlapping fields of fire and immediate counter-battery responses. The attacks were repelled within 18 minutes. 0 American casualties. 14 enemy combatants captured, along with detailed operational plans that revealed a sophisticated intelligence network operating throughout the region. Colonel Harrison received the after-action reports at 05:45 while Rebecca stood at attention in his office. He read through each document twice before looking up at her. "Lieutenant Ashford, your analysis saved lives last night." "Thank you, sir." "I owe you an apology. I made assumptions based on appearance rather than capability. That was unprofessional and potentially dangerous." Rebecca maintained her professional posture. "Sir, I understand that new personnel require evaluation before being assigned sensitive responsibilities." "This wasn't an evaluation, this was prejudice." Harrison set the reports aside and studied Rebecca with obvious reassessment. "Where did you learn trilingual cryptographic analysis?" "Defense Language Institute, sir, Advanced Linguistics Program." "DLI doesn't teach the kind of analysis you demonstrated yesterday. The program focuses on translation and basic interpretation, not cryptographic linguistics." Rebecca was quiet for a moment. "I pursued additional studies independently, sir." "What kind of additional studies?" "Computational linguistics, semantic pattern analysis, and mathematical encryption theory." Harrison had worked with intelligence analysts for 15 years. The combination of skills Rebecca had just described was extremely rare and typically required years of specialized training beyond standard military education. "Lieutenant, what was your academic background before military service?" "Massachusetts Institute of Technology, sir. Dual doctorate in applied mathematics and cognitive science." Harrison felt his understanding of Rebecca's capabilities shift dramatically. MIT didn't award dual doctorates to average students. The combination of mathematical analysis and cognitive science suggested someone who understood both the technical aspects of encryption and the psychological patterns that influenced how people created and used coded communications. "Why are you enlisted as a lieutenant? With those credentials, you could have entered as a captain or major." "I preferred to learn military operations from the ground level, sir. Academic knowledge doesn't necessarily translate to field effectiveness." "And your interest in intelligence work?" "Languages reveal how people think. Encrypted communications show how they try to hide what they're thinking. Understanding both provides insight into intentions and capabilities." Major Walsh entered the office carrying a thick file marked with classification stamps that indicated materials requiring special handling procedures. "Colonel, I've received Lieutenant Ashford's complete personnel record from the Pentagon Personnel Command." Harrison accepted the file and began reading. His expression changed as he reviewed documents that revealed Rebecca's background in far greater detail than her initial assignment paperwork had indicated. "Lieutenant, it says here you published research on algorithmic approaches to multilingual semantic analysis while you were still a graduate student." "Yes, sir." "Your research was classified and incorporated into NSA cryptographic programs." "I was informed of that after publication, sir." Major Walsh looked between Rebecca and Colonel Harrison with obvious curiosity. "Sir, what kind of research gets classified by the National Security Agency?" Harrison continued reading. "Methods for identifying hidden patterns in cross-linguistic communications. Techniques for detecting embedded intelligence in routine conversations. Mathematical models for predicting behavioral patterns based on language structure choices. In other words, Rebecca said simply, exactly what I did yesterday with the intercepted communications. Harrison realized he had been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of Rebecca's assignment to his unit. Personnel Command hadn't sent him an inexperienced analyst who needed basic training. They had sent him someone whose specialized capabilities were specifically suited for the kind of complex intelligence challenges his unit was facing. Lieutenant, were you specifically requested for this assignment? I believe my academic background was considered relevant to current operational requirements, sir. By whom? Rebecca hesitated before answering. That information may be above my clearance level to discuss, sir. Harrison understood the implication. Rebecca's assignment hadn't come through normal personnel rotation procedures. Someone with significant authority had specifically placed her in his unit because they anticipated situations that would require her unique analytical capabilities. Major Walsh, I want you to coordinate with Lieutenant Ashford on reviewing all intercepted communications from the past month. Use her analytical methodology to identify any patterns we might have missed. Yes, sir. And Major, Lieutenant Ashford is promoted to Senior Analyst effective immediately. She'll report directly to me on all cryptographic assessments. After Major Walsh left, Harrison studied Rebecca with professional curiosity rather than skepticism. Lieutenant, how many languages do you speak fluently? 12 languages with native-level proficiency, sir. Another 8 with conversational capability. Jesus Christ, where did you learn 12 languages? Military families move frequently, sir. I lived in 7 different countries before college. Languages were necessary for social integration. And you chose to apply those skills to intelligence analysis. Language is how humans share information, sir. Military operations depend on information advantages. Understanding how enemies communicate provides strategic benefits. Harrison was beginning to understand that Rebecca's capabilities extended far beyond the specific incident with the coordinated attacks. Her linguistic abilities, combined with her mathematical training and understanding of cognitive patterns, made her uniquely qualified to identify intelligence that other analysts might miss. Lieutenant, I want you to know that your status in this unit has changed significantly. You're not here for routine intelligence processing. You're here because someone at a very high level believes we need your specific capabilities. I understand, sir. Do you know why you were assigned to Fort Braxton specifically? I assume because this region involves communications from multiple linguistic groups with sophisticated encryption capabilities. Harrison nodded. We've been intercepting communications that our standard analysts couldn't fully decode, patterns that suggested coordinated activities, but nothing concrete enough to act on. Yesterday's attack confirms that enemy forces are using communication methods that exceed our normal analytical capabilities. What kind of patterns, sir? Harrison pulled out a map marked with locations where suspicious communications had been intercepted over the past 3 months. Radio traffic that seems routine on the surface, but occurs with timing and geographical patterns that suggest coordination. Multiple languages, multiple encryption methods, but nothing that fits standard cryptographic models. Rebecca studied the map with the same systematic attention she had applied to the previous day's communications. Sir, may I review the complete collection of intercepted materials? All of it? The patterns may be more complex than individual incidents. Understanding the full scope could reveal organizational structure and operational planning that individual communications don't show. Harrison realized he was about to give Rebecca access to intelligence materials that would reveal the scope of enemy activities throughout the entire region. Information that could provide insight into strategic planning and capabilities that went far beyond tactical operations. Lieutenant, reviewing those materials will require security clearance elevation. Are you prepared for that level of responsibility? Yes, sir. And you understand that this represents a completely different type of assignment than routine intelligence analysis. Rebecca met his eyes with steady confidence. Sir, I believe this is exactly why I was sent here. Harrison made his decision. Major Walsh will arrange your clearance upgrade. You'll have access to all regional intelligence materials by tomorrow morning. Thank you, sir. Lieutenant, one more question. How confident are you that yesterday's attack was part of a larger operational plan? Rebecca was quiet for a moment, considering the implications of her answer. Sir, based on the sophistication of the communication methods and the precision of the coordination, I believe yesterday was a test of our defensive capabilities. The real objective was gathering intelligence about our response procedures. Meaning the actual assault is still being planned, and now they have detailed information about how we react to coordinated threats. Harrison felt his stomach tighten. If Rebecca was correct, the enemy had used yesterday's attacks not as an attempt to overrun American positions, but as reconnaissance to identify defensive weaknesses for a much larger operation. How long do we have? Based on the communication patterns and operational complexity, I estimate between 72 and 96 hours before they're prepared for the primary assault. Harrison looked at the map showing the locations of American forces throughout the region. If Rebecca was right about the scope of enemy planning, they were facing something far more dangerous than isolated attacks on forward operating bases. Lieutenant Ashford, I need you to find every piece of hidden intelligence in those communications. Everything. We may be looking at a coordinated assault on multiple American positions throughout the region. Yes, sir, I'll begin immediately. As Rebecca left his office, Harrison realized his initial assessment of her as just another pretty face had nearly resulted in catastrophic intelligence failure. Her capabilities were exactly what his unit needed, but only if he was willing to trust analysis that exceeded conventional military intelligence methods. The next 72 hours would determine whether Rebecca could identify enemy planning in time to prevent a coordinated assault that could threaten American forces throughout the entire operational area. Rebecca spent 18 hours straight analyzing 3 months of intercepted communications, working through layers of encrypted messaging that revealed a network far more sophisticated than anyone had suspected. When she finally emerged from the secure analysis room, she carried evidence of an intelligence operation that changed everything Colonel Harrison thought he knew about regional threats. Sir, she said, spreading digital displays across the main tactical screen, we're not dealing with isolated terrorist cells. This is a coordinated intelligence network operating across 4 countries, with communication protocols that suggest state-level sponsorship. Harrison studied the complex diagram Rebecca had created, showing communication patterns between dozens of different groups connected through multilingual coded messaging systems. How many operatives are we talking about? Minimum of 200 active participants, but the network structure suggests they're coordinating activities for much larger forces. These communications aren't tactical battlefield coordination. They're strategic intelligence gathering. Major Walsh joined them at the display, reviewing Rebecca's analysis with obvious amazement. Lieutenant, how did you identify connections across this many different communication intercepts? Each language encodes different types of information, but the mathematical relationships between the codes are consistent. Once you map the pattern structure, you can trace connections even when the surface content appears completely unrelated. Rebecca highlighted different communication clusters on the screen. Arabic communications handle geographical intelligence. Farsi manages timing and logistics. Pashto coordinates personnel movements. But the mathematical encoding that links them together uses a cipher system I've seen before. Colonel Harrison looked up sharply. Where have you seen it before? Rebecca was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. During my graduate research at MIT, I analyzed communication patterns from historical intelligence operations. This cipher system matches techniques used by Soviet intelligence during the Cold War. Soviet techniques? How do you know about classified Soviet intelligence methods? My research was conducted in partnership with the National Security Agency. They provided historical communication intercepts for pattern analysis studies. Major Walsh frowned. The NSA gave you access to Soviet intelligence intercepts while you were a graduate student? My doctoral advisor was Dr. Elizabeth Brennan. She was formerly in the NSA Cryptographic Division. My research focus was understanding how intelligence networks maintain operational security across multiple languages and cultural contexts. Harrison realized Rebecca's background was far more complex than even her impressive academic credentials had suggested. Partnership with NSA during graduate studies meant she had been identified as someone with exceptional analytical capabilities before she even entered military service. Lieutenant, what exactly was the nature of your research partnership with NSA? I developed mathematical models for predicting intelligence network behavior based on communication pattern analysis. The research was classified because it demonstrated methods for identifying and disrupting foreign intelligence operations. And Dr. Brennan was your advisor? Yes, sir. Harrison knew that name. Elizabeth Brennan was legendary within intelligence circles. the architect of cryptographic analysis methods that had been instrumental in identifying Soviet intelligence networks during the final years of the Cold War. Her students didn't become routine intelligence analysts. They became specialists in counterintelligence operations at the highest levels. Major Walsh, I need you to contact the Pentagon Intelligence Command immediately. Request the classified file on Lieutenant Ashford's NSA research partnership. After Walsh left, Harrison studied Rebecca with new understanding. Lieutenant, I'm beginning to suspect your assignment to my unit wasn't routine personnel rotation. Sir, I believe my research background was considered relevant to current operational challenges. What challenges specifically? Rebecca gestured toward the communication analysis displayed on the tactical screen. Sophisticated intelligence networks using multilingual encryption methods that combine modern digital communications with historical cipher techniques. Exactly the type of system my research was designed to identify and counter. Harrison was starting to understand that Rebecca's presence at Fort Braxton represented far more than a coincidental assignment of a qualified analyst. Someone at a very high level had identified specific threats requiring her unique capabilities and positioned her where those capabilities would be most effective. How long have you been tracking communication patterns that match your historical research? I first noticed similarities 3 weeks ago, but I needed more data to confirm the pattern structure. Yesterday's coordinated attacks provided the missing verification elements. So you've been conducting advanced cryptographic analysis for 3 weeks without reporting it through normal channels? Rebecca met his eyes directly. Sir, I needed to be certain about the pattern identification before making claims that could influence operational planning. Incorrect analysis could compromise ongoing operations or misdirect resources. Harrison realized Rebecca had been operating at a level of analytical sophistication that exceeded standard military intelligence protocols from the moment she arrived. Her apparent compliance with routine assignment procedures had been covered for investigation that required capabilities most analysts didn't possess. Lieutenant, what can you tell me about the current threat assessment based on your complete analysis? Rebecca returned to the tactical display, highlighting specific elements of the communication network. The intelligence operation we're facing is designed to gather detailed information about American operational capabilities throughout the Middle East, communication intercepts, defensive procedures, response timing, coordination protocols. For what purpose? To identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited during a coordinated assault designed to eliminate American forward operating capacity in this region. Harrison felt the scope of the threat expanding beyond anything he had previously considered. You're talking about something larger than attacks on individual bases. Yes, sir. I'm talking about a systematic campaign to remove American military presence from strategic positions that control access routes and communication corridors throughout the region. Rebecca showed him analysis of geographical patterns embedded in the intercepted communications. The intelligence gathering focuses on bases that provide overlapping defensive coverage. If the right combination of positions were eliminated simultaneously, it would create a strategic gap that could be exploited for larger operations. What kind of larger operations? Supply route interdiction, communication disruption, and isolation of remaining American forces from mutual support capabilities. Harrison understood the implications. The enemy wasn't planning random attacks on American positions. They were conducting systematic intelligence gathering to identify how to eliminate American defensive capabilities throughout the entire regional operational area. Lieutenant, how confident are you in this assessment? The communication patterns match historical precedents for intelligence operations preceding major strategic offensives. The data collection is too comprehensive and systematic for isolated tactical planning. Harrison made a decision that would change how his unit approached regional intelligence analysis. I'm elevating this to theater command immediately. But first, I need to understand something about your background. Sir? Dr. Elizabeth Brennan doesn't take graduate students randomly. NSA doesn't provide classified materials for routine academic research. And the Pentagon Personnel Command doesn't assign MIT doctorate holders to routine intelligence analysis positions without specific operational reasons. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Sir, what would you like to know? I want to know why you're really here, not the official assignment explanation. The real reason someone with your capabilities was placed in my unit at this specific time. Because intelligence analysis indicates this region is facing coordinated threats that require analytical capabilities beyond standard military intelligence training. Who made that determination? People who understand that current enemy capabilities exceed traditional threat models. Harrison realized he was receiving carefully constructed answers that revealed information without compromising classified operational details. Rebecca's responses suggested she possessed knowledge about regional threats and intelligence operations that exceeded anything available through normal military channels. Lieutenant, have you worked with Dr. Brennan on operations beyond your graduate research? I'm not authorized to discuss ongoing relationships with NSA personnel, sir. Are you currently assigned to this unit as a military intelligence analyst or as NSA liaison? Sir, my orders indicate an assignment as intelligence analyst with your unit. All other operational details are classified above my authorization to discuss. Harrison understood. Rebecca's military assignment provided cover for intelligence analysis capabilities that exceeded normal military resources. Her work with his unit was part of operations coordinated at levels that transcended standard military hierarchy. One final question, Lieutenant. How many similar intelligence networks have you identified and analyzed? This is my fourth assignment involving sophisticated multilingual intelligence operations, sir. Fourth assignment. How long have you been doing this type of work? Since completing my NSA research partnership 18 months ago. Harrison realized Rebecca wasn't just an exceptionally qualified analyst who had happened to identify an unusual threat. She was a specialist in counterintelligence operations who had been specifically trained and deployed to identify and counter sophisticated enemy intelligence networks. Lieutenant Ashford, I believe your assignment to my unit represents preparation for operations that exceed anything we've previously encountered in this region. Yes, sir, I believe that assessment is correct. And the intelligence network you've identified is connected to threat planning that could affect American operations throughout the Middle East. That is my professional assessment based on available evidence, sir. Harrison understood that Rebecca's analysis represented the beginning of counterintelligence operations that would determine whether American forces could maintain strategic position in a region where enemies possessed intelligence capabilities that matched or exceeded traditional American advantages. The next phase would require capabilities that Rebecca possessed but that exceeded anything available through normal military intelligence resources. Capabilities that explained why someone with her background had been positioned exactly where those capabilities would be most needed. At 0600 hours, Rebecca was summoned to a secure conference room she had never seen before, located 3 levels below the main operations center. General Margaret Hoffman, commander of regional intelligence operations, sat at the head of a polished table surrounded by officers whose shoulder insignia indicated involvement in classified programs beyond standard military hierarchy. Lieutenant Ashford, please be seated, General Hoffman said, gesturing toward the chair directly across from her. We need to discuss your analysis of the regional intelligence network. Rebecca took her position, noting that Colonel Harrison was not present, and that the security protocols in effect exceeded anything she had encountered during routine intelligence briefings. The room itself was equipped with electronic countermeasures and communication isolation systems that indicated discussions involving national security materials. General, I've prepared a comprehensive briefing on the network structure and threat assessment. Before we begin, Lieutenant, I need to clarify your operational status. Dr. Elizabeth Brennan has requested that you be granted unrestricted access to all regional intelligence materials and authorized to coordinate directly with NSA cryptographic analysis teams. Rebecca maintained professional composure but internally recognized that her cover assignment as routine military analyst was being officially acknowledged as inadequate for current operational requirements. Yes, ma'am. Furthermore, you are hereby authorized to implement advanced counterintelligence protocols that may exceed standard military engagement procedures. Your operational clearance now matches your actual analytical capabilities. General Hoffman slid a tablet across the table containing authorization codes that would provide Rebecca access to intelligence databases and communication systems reserved for the highest levels of national security operations. Lieutenant, show us what you found. Rebecca activated the secure display system and began presenting analysis that revealed the scope of enemy intelligence operations in devastating detail. The multilingual communication network she had identified extended across 12 countries, coordinated activities for over 800 operatives, and had been gathering intelligence about American operations for at least 14 months. The network uses a tripartite encryption system that alternates between historical Soviet cipher techniques, modern digital encryption, and linguistic steganography embedded in routine communications. Breaking any single element provides limited information, but analyzing all three simultaneously reveals complete operational planning. Colonel Bradley Stevenson, whom Rebecca recognized as Deputy Director of Defense Intelligence Agency, leaned forward with obvious interest. "Lieutenant, how long did it take you to develop the analytical methodology for breaking this system?" "The basic framework existed from my graduate research, sir. Adapting it to current intelligence requirements took approximately 8 hours of computational analysis." 8 hours to break a communication system that has been protecting enemy operations for over a year. Quote, "The mathematics are complex, but the pattern recognition follows predictable algorithmic structures once you identify the multilingual encoding relationships." General Hoffman studied Rebecca with a professional assessment that suggested evaluation of capabilities rather than routine briefing attendance. "Lieutenant, demonstrate your real-time analysis capability. We're going to provide you with intercepted communications that were received this morning." Rebecca accepted a data tablet containing communications intercepts that appeared to be routine tactical coordination between enemy forces. Surface analysis would identify basic information about troop movements and supply logistics, but Rebecca immediately began identifying deeper pattern structures. These communications contain embedded intelligence about American communication protocols at Firebase Delta and Outpost Echo. The enemy has detailed information about radio frequencies, encryption keys, and communication timing schedules. How can you determine that from tactical communications about supply deliveries? Rebecca highlighted specific phrases within the intercepts, showing how language transitions and grammatical structures contained numerical codes that corresponded to American communication procedures. The supply delivery coordinates, when processed through the trilingual cipher matrix, produce frequency specifications that match current American communication protocols. The timing references for delivery schedules correspond to communication window schedules when bases are most vulnerable to signal intelligence gathering. Colonel Stevenson exchanged glances with General Hoffman. "Lieutenant, this suggests the enemy has access to classified information about American communication security procedures." "Yes, sir. The intelligence network has either intercepted classified communications or has sources providing information about American operational security protocols." "Can you identify how they're accessing this information?" Rebecca returned to her analysis, processing communication patterns that revealed network behavior beyond simple intelligence gathering. The information flow patterns suggest multiple sources providing different types of intelligence. Signal intercepts, human intelligence, and what appears to be electronic surveillance of American communication systems. Electronic surveillance? Quote, "Sir, the enemy possesses detailed information about American electronic warfare capabilities, communication encryption methods, and signal intelligence procedures. This suggests access to technical specifications that should be available only to personnel with security clearances at the highest levels." General Hoffman leaned back in her chair. "Lieutenant, you're suggesting we have a security breach at the level of classified program access." "Ma'am, I'm suggesting the enemy intelligence network has access to information that could only come from sources within American intelligence operations, or through technical surveillance capabilities that exceed our current threat assessments." Rebecca continued her analysis, identifying patterns that revealed the scope of enemy intelligence gathering extended far beyond regional tactical operations. The network is collecting intelligence about American capabilities throughout the global theater of operations. Communication protocols, defensive systems, operational planning procedures, and coordination methods. For what purpose? To identify vulnerabilities that could be exploited for systematic degradation of American intelligence and communication capabilities worldwide. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. The enemy intelligence network wasn't focused on tactical advantages for regional operations. They were conducting systematic analysis of American intelligence capabilities to identify methods for compromising national security operations on a global scale. Colonel Stevenson activated a secure communication terminal. "Lieutenant, I need you to expand your analysis to include all available intelligence intercepts from the past 6 months. Everything we have." "Sir, that represents approximately 14,000 communication intercepts across 47 different languages." "How long would comprehensive analysis require?" Rebecca considered the computational requirements and analytical complexity. With access to NSA cryptographic analysis systems and parallel processing capabilities, approximately 36 hours for complete pattern identification and network mapping. And you can accomplish this analysis independently. Sir, I would require technical support for data processing and secure communication with Dr. Brennan's team for verification of pattern analysis against historical precedents. General Hoffman made her decision. Lieutenant Ashford, you are temporarily detached from routine military assignment and assigned directly to my command for counterintelligence operations. You will have unrestricted access to all available intelligence materials and direct support from NSA technical teams. Yes, ma'am. Furthermore, you are authorized to implement any analytical procedures you determine necessary for identifying and countering the intelligence network you've discovered. Rebecca understood that her operational status had changed from military intelligence analyst to national security specialist operating under authority that transcended normal military hierarchy. Generally, I recommend immediate implementation of communication security protocols that assume enemy access to current American procedures. All operational communications should be conducted under revised encryption methods until we can determine the scope of their intelligence gathering. Approved. What else? I recommend coordinated counterintelligence operations designed to provide false information through channels the enemy network is using to gather intelligence. If we can identify their sources, we can feed them information that will compromise their operational planning. Can you design those counterintelligence operations? Yes, ma'am. But implementation will require coordination with field operations throughout the region and possibly globally, depending on the network's actual scope. General Hoffman looked around the room at officers whose expressions indicated understanding that they were dealing with intelligence threats that exceeded anything they had previously encountered. Lieutenant, you have complete operational authority for counterintelligence operations against this network. Whatever resources you need, whatever coordination is required, whatever procedures you determine necessary. Thank you, ma'am. How confident are you that your analysis can identify and counter this intelligence network before they achieve their operational objectives? Rebecca was quiet for a moment, considering the complexity of the network and the sophistication of their methods. General, I believe their operational objectives include compromising American intelligence capabilities to such an extent that traditional military responses become ineffective. Meaning this isn't preparation for conventional military assault on American positions. This is preparation for systematic neutralization of the American ability to conduct intelligence operations globally. General Hoffman realized they were facing an intelligence threat that could fundamentally compromise American national security capabilities, and that Lieutenant Rebecca Ashford represented their primary capability for understanding and countering operations that exceeded anything they had previously encountered. Lieutenant, begin your analysis immediately. The security of American operations worldwide may depend on what you can accomplish in the next 36 hours. Yes, ma'am. I'll need direct communication with NSA teams and access to global intelligence intercept databases. You have it, whatever you need. As Rebecca left the secure conference room with authorization that elevated her operational status to the highest levels of national security operations, she understood that the next 36 hours would determine whether American intelligence capabilities could survive systematic attack by enemies who understood American procedures well enough to exploit fundamental vulnerabilities. 34 hours after beginning her comprehensive analysis, Rebecca emerged from the secure computational facility with evidence that fundamentally changed how American intelligence operations understood global security threats. Her findings revealed that the multilingual intelligence network she had discovered was only the visible component of a systematic campaign that had been influencing American strategic decisions for over 3 years. Dr. Elizabeth Brennan arrived at Fort Braxton at 0800 hours, carrying classified materials that would provide context for Rebecca's analysis within the broader scope of ongoing counterintelligence operations. Her presence indicated that Rebecca's discoveries had attracted attention at the highest levels of national security decision-making. Rebecca, Dr. Brennan said as they settled in the secure analysis room, your work over the past 36 hours has identified intelligence operations that we've been trying to track for 18 months. Show me what you found. Rebecca activated the comprehensive display system she had created, revealing network diagrams that mapped intelligence operations across 43 countries, involving over 2,000 operatives coordinated through communication systems that had remained invisible to traditional analysis methods. The network we initially identified in this region is a subsidiary operation of a global intelligence organization that has been systematically gathering information about American capabilities, while simultaneously influencing American strategic decisions through carefully orchestrated information campaigns. Dr. Brennan studied the complex diagrams showing information flow patterns between different components of the global network. How have they been influencing American strategic decisions? By providing intelligence through channels that appear to be independent sources, but are actually coordinated to create false assessments of enemy capabilities and strategic priorities. American decision-makers have been basing operational planning on intelligence that was designed to misdirect American resources away from actual threats. Rebecca highlighted specific examples of intelligence reports that had influenced American military deployment over the past 2 years. Threat assessments that led to increased American presence in areas where no actual threats existed, while reducing surveillance and defensive positioning in areas where real threats were developing. You're describing systematic strategic deception on a scale that would require intelligence capabilities exceeding anything we've previously encountered. Yes, ma'am. The network combines traditional human intelligence gathering with advanced computational analysis and what appears to be artificial intelligence systems capable of predicting American decision-making patterns based on historical responses to specific types of intelligence. Dr. Brennan realized Rebecca had identified operations that transcended conventional intelligence gathering and entered the realm of strategic manipulation designed to systematically degrade American global security positioning. Rebecca, have you identified the source of their artificial intelligence capabilities? The computational analysis suggests access to American artificial intelligence research, possibly through academic partnerships or commercial technology transfer programs. They're using American AI development to predict and manipulate American strategic responses. Rebecca showed Dr. Brennan analysis of decision-making patterns that revealed how the enemy network had successfully predicted American responses to manufactured intelligence with accuracy rates exceeding 90%. They've been testing American decision-making systems for 3 years, providing intelligence designed to elicit specific responses, then analyzing how American command structures process information and make strategic decisions. For what ultimate purpose? To identify methods for influencing American strategic decisions that would compromise global security positioning while making the influence appear to be based on legitimate intelligence analysis. Dr. Brennan understood the implications. The enemy network hadn't just been gathering intelligence about American capabilities. They had been systematically studying American decision-making processes to identify methods for manipulating American strategic responses without detection. Show me how you identified the decision-making manipulation. Rebecca displayed mathematical models that revealed correlation patterns between enemy-provided intelligence and subsequent American strategic decisions. The timing patterns are too consistent to be coincidental. Intelligence appears through channels that seem independent, but the mathematical relationships between different intelligence sources reveal coordination designed to influence specific American responses. And American decision-makers have been unaware of the manipulation? The intelligence appears to come from multiple independent sources using different communication methods and validation procedures. Without understanding the underlying mathematical coordination, it would appear to be confirmed intelligence from diverse sources. Dr. Brennan recognized the sophistication of operations that could manipulate American strategic decision-making while maintaining the appearance of legitimate intelligence analysis. Rebecca, this suggests enemy capabilities that exceed our current threat assessment models. Ma'am, I believe this network represents the most sophisticated intelligence operation in recorded history. They've achieved systematic influence over American strategic decisions while remaining completely invisible to traditional counterintelligence methods. Rebecca showed Dr. Brennan analysis of global implications that revealed how the network's influence had affected American positioning throughout Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America. American military presence has been systematically redirected away from areas where actual threats were developing, while being concentrated in areas where threats were manufactured to appear significant, quote, resulting in compromised American ability to respond to actual security threats while depleting resources on responses to manufactured crises that served enemy strategic objectives. Dr. Brennan realized that Rebecca's analysis revealed intelligence operations that had been systematically degrading American global security positioning for years while remaining completely undetected by traditional intelligence analysis methods. What's your assessment of current American strategic positioning based on this analysis? Rebecca was quiet for a moment, considering the full implications of her findings. Ma'am, if this network has been successfully influencing American strategic decisions for 3 years, then current American global positioning may be fundamentally compromised. Meaning American forces may be positioned exactly where enemies want them to be, prepared for threats that don't exist, while actual threats develop in areas where American presence has been systematically reduced. Dr. Brennan understood that Rebecca had identified strategic manipulation that could represent the most significant compromise of American national security in modern history. Rebecca, can your analysis identify specific instances where American strategic decisions were influenced by enemy intelligence operations? Yes, ma'am. I've identified 47 specific intelligence reports that influenced major American strategic decisions over the past 3 years. All of them show mathematical signatures consistent with the global network coordination patterns. Rebecca displayed examples of intelligence reports that had led to American military deployments, resource allocation decisions, and strategic partnership agreements that had systematically weakened American global positioning while appearing to be based on legitimate threat assessments. The network's ultimate objective appears to be strategic positioning of American forces that would make coordinated global assault on American interests feasible, while minimizing American capability for effective response. How close are they to achieving that objective? Based on current American force positioning and the systematic degradation of strategic intelligence capabilities, I estimate they could implement coordinated global operations against American interests within 6 to 8 months. Dr. Brennan realized that Rebecca's analysis revealed not just intelligence gathering operations, but systematic preparation for coordinated assault on American global security interests using American strategic decisions that had been manipulated by enemy intelligence operations. What's your recommendation for countering these operations? Immediate implementation of revised intelligence analysis protocols that assume enemy influence in all intelligence sources until verification through independent analytical methods. Complete reassessment of American strategic positioning based on analysis that excludes potentially compromised intelligence sources. And long-term counterintelligence operations? Systematic identification and neutralization of network components while providing false intelligence through compromised channels to mislead enemy strategic planning. Dr. Brennan understood that Rebecca had not only identified the most sophisticated intelligence operation in history, but had developed methods for countering operations that exceeded anything previously encountered by American counterintelligence capabilities. Rebecca, your analysis will require complete revision of American intelligence operations and strategic positioning globally. Yes, ma'am. But I believe the alternative is systematic compromise of American national security through continued manipulation of strategic decision-making by enemies who understand American procedures better than American decision-makers understand enemy capabilities. Dr. Brennan realized that Rebecca's discoveries would influence American intelligence operations for decades, providing methods for identifying and countering systematic strategic manipulation, while revealing how enemies had achieved unprecedented influence over American national security decisions. Your work will be classified at the highest levels and integrated into counterintelligence training throughout American intelligence operations. I understand, ma'am. And Rebecca, your methods for identifying systematic strategic manipulation will become standard procedures for validating all intelligence sources. Rebecca understood that her analysis had revealed operations that would fundamentally change how American intelligence services approached global security assessment and strategic decision-making, ensuring that future American strategic decisions would be protected against the kind of systematic manipulation she had discovered. 18 months later, Colonel Harrison sat in the same operations center where he had first dismissed Lieutenant Rebecca Ashford as just another pretty face, reviewing intelligence analysis reports that bore the unmistakable signature of methods she had pioneered. Every intelligence assessment now included verification protocols designed to detect systematic manipulation, and every strategic decision underwent analysis using mathematical models Rebecca had developed to identify enemy influence operations. Rebecca herself had vanished from Fort Braxton 3 weeks after her global network analysis was completed, reassigned to classified operations that Colonel Harrison's clearance level couldn't access. But her influence on intelligence operations had become permanent and pervasive, integrated into every level of American national security analysis. Major Walsh, now the unit's senior intelligence coordinator, entered Harrison's office carrying the monthly report on counterintelligence operations. Sir, we've successfully identified and neutralized 12 enemy intelligence gathering operations this quarter, using Lieutenant Ashford's analytical frameworks. any sign of the global network she discovered? According to classified reports from Pentagon intelligence, the network has been systematically dismantled over the past year. Her counterintelligence operations provided false information through compromised channels that led enemy operatives to expose their entire command structure. Harrison nodded, understanding that Rebecca's work had extended far beyond identifying threats to actively destroying the most sophisticated intelligence operation in modern history. What about the artificial intelligence systems they were using? Completely compromised. Rebecca's team fed their AI systems false data patterns that corrupted their predictive algorithms. The enemy's ability to manipulate American strategic decisions has been eliminated. The transformation extended throughout American intelligence operations globally. Training facilities now taught Rebecca's multilingual cryptographic analysis as a standard curriculum. Intelligence analysts learned to identify systematic manipulation patterns. Strategic decision-makers received briefings on how enemy operations could influence planning through carefully orchestrated information campaigns. But perhaps most significantly, American strategic positioning had been completely revised based on Rebecca's analysis of compromised intelligence. Forces that had been deployed to areas where manufactured threats had misdirected resources were repositioned to address actual security challenges that enemy manipulation had previously obscured. Danny Park, now a captain serving as liaison between field intelligence and analysis teams, had studied Rebecca's methods extensively during his advanced training. "Sir, the intelligence community refers to her analytical approach as the Ashford Protocol. It's become the gold standard for detecting sophisticated enemy influence operations." Harrison found it remarkable that someone he had initially dismissed based on appearance had created analytical methods that were now protecting American national security on a global scale. "Has anyone maintained contact with her?" Dr. Brennan occasionally provides updates through classified channels. Lieutenant Ashford is apparently working on counterintelligence operations that require even more advanced capabilities than what she demonstrated here. Harrison could only imagine what challenges would require capabilities beyond what Rebecca had already demonstrated. Her work at Fort Braxton had revealed and neutralized systematic manipulation of American strategic decision-making, but apparently represented only a portion of her overall capabilities. The Defense Intelligence Agency had created an entire division dedicated to implementing Rebecca's methods for identifying and countering systematic intelligence operations. Her mathematical models for detecting multilingual cryptographic patterns had been adapted for analysis of communications in over 60 languages, providing unprecedented capability for understanding global intelligence networks. More importantly, her methods for identifying artificial intelligence manipulation had become essential for protecting democratic decision-making processes against systematic information warfare. Governments throughout NATO had adopted her protocols for validating intelligence sources and detecting coordinated influence campaigns. Colonel Harrison often wondered about the long-term implications of Rebecca's discoveries. Her analysis had revealed that American strategic decisions had been systematically compromised for years. But her counterintelligence operations had also demonstrated that the same analytical capabilities could be used to protect democratic institutions against sophisticated information manipulation. The ripple effects extended beyond military intelligence. Academic institutions now studied Rebecca's work as an example of how individual analytical excellence could influence global security. Students learned about the importance of questioning assumptions, validating sources, and understanding how systematic manipulation could compromise institutional decision-making. But Rebecca's identity remained as protected as her methods were widespread. Military personnel learned the Ashford Protocol without knowing anything about the person who had developed it. Intelligence analysts used her frameworks without understanding the specific circumstances that had led to their creation. The secrecy was necessary because Rebecca's ongoing operations required the same anonymity that had allowed her to identify enemy networks at Fort Braxton. Her most effective work happened when enemies didn't realize they were being analyzed by someone with capabilities that exceeded their own systematic manipulation techniques. Harrison received periodic updates through classified briefings that suggested Rebecca's influence continued expanding. Intelligence operations throughout Europe had adopted her methods for detecting systematic influence campaigns. Asian intelligence services used her protocols for validating information sources. African governments applied her frameworks for protecting national decision-making processes against external manipulation. Her work had fundamentally changed how democratic institutions approached information security and strategic decision-making. But the person responsible for these changes remained invisible to public recognition, operating at levels of classification that protected both her identity and the methods she continued developing. 5 years after Rebecca's assignment to Fort Braxton, Colonel Harrison was promoted to Regional Intelligence Command and gained access to classified reports that provided broader context for her ongoing work. The global intelligence network she had identified had been completely neutralized, but her analysis had revealed that similar networks were operating throughout the world, using variations of the same systematic manipulation techniques. Rebecca had become the leading expert in identifying and countering systematic information warfare operations that threatened democratic institutions globally. Her methods protected not just American national security, but the fundamental capability of democratic societies to make strategic decisions based on accurate information rather than enemy manipulation. The ultimate irony wasn't lost on Harrison. The woman he had dismissed as just another pretty face had become the most influential intelligence analyst of her generation, developing methods that protected democratic decision-making worldwide while remaining completely unknown to the societies she served. Her story became legend within intelligence communities, shared in quiet conversations among professionals who understood the importance of individual excellence in protecting collective security. Someone who had demonstrated that appearances could mask capabilities that exceeded institutional expectations, and that true expertise sometimes required complete anonymity to remain effective. Military academies began including case studies based on Rebecca's work, though without identifying her personally. Students learned about the importance of avoiding assumptions based on appearance, the value of advanced analytical training, and the need for institutional flexibility that could accommodate exceptional capabilities when they appeared in unexpected forms. But the most important lesson was broader, that democratic institutions required protection against systematic manipulation by individuals with capabilities that exceeded normal threat assessment models. Rebecca had demonstrated both the vulnerability of democratic decision-making to sophisticated influence operations and the methods necessary for protecting institutional integrity against systematic information warfare. Her legacy lived in every intelligence analysis that detected enemy manipulation, every strategic decision that remained protected against systematic influence, and every democratic institution that maintained the capability to make decisions based on accurate information rather than enemy deception. The colonel, who had called her just another pretty face, had learned that true expertise often appeared in forms that challenged institutional assumptions, and that recognizing exceptional capability required looking beyond surface appearances to understand the depth of knowledge and training that individuals brought to complex challenges. Rebecca Ashford had saved American national security while teaching democratic institutions how to protect themselves against systematic manipulation by enemies who understood that the most effective attacks targeted decision-making processes rather than military positions. And she had accomplished all of this while remaining as invisible as the threats she had revealed, proof that the most important service sometimes required complete sacrifice of personal recognition for the protection of values larger than individual achievement. Her story became the ultimate example of how individual excellence could influence global security, demonstrating that one person with exceptional capabilities, placed in the right position at the right time, could change the course of history while remaining completely unknown to the world they had protected. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.